from Mexico, I was righteous to say the least. I would even go so far as saying I felt free. I was having one of those times in my life in Aspen at least, and this was the first closing party I could experience because I was normally DJing on the mountain. Sorry, in my haste I failed to mention that Highlands closing is also a costume experience. While not mandatory, it definitely adds to the celebration. Everything hits. The booze, the drugs, the energy, the excitement. Then I bump into a friend and he is dressed as a pilot. I truly thought he was a pilot and just didn't tell me, like he was holding information about a secret jet-setting life, and I was a little offended. It took a great amount of time to think myself out of this hole that his costume placed me in. It's just like life. A famous comedian once said, yeah, I don't remember his name. Ask Studley for that name. I don't know either, Stan. Life sometimes tells you to get in the hole, and I was definitely in the hole, but a goddamn good hole. For the next 45 minutes, in my head, it was all true. The costumes told stories of other lives that I didn't know about and rolled with it. Made me sane again, kind of. Okay, listeners, now you know Stan is clearly on mushrooms as he's writing this story. All right, let's continue. But then amazingly I snap out of it and I wander inside to relieve myself and grab a beer. As I'm standing in the middle of the room, I get a tap on my shoulder. I swiftly turn around and stare blankly across the room. I saw no one, but as I turned back around, my buddy Rebecca was standing there being her friendly self. Amazed at the amount of glitter makeup she had on and how it made my mushroom high come back, I stood there and we conversed as I stared at the comets flying across her smiling face. Shit, here it is again. The annoying fucking tap on my shoulder. I turn around. This time I look down as Rebecca stands way below my towering 5'9" stature. But it wasn't her shit we were talking about how it could be. Well, drugs, stupid, that is how, but it wasn't. I don't know what that means. I turn around, and I see an elbow with a stubby hand extended, reaching out to mine for the manliest of shakes. I gave a shake and a hug. I was really feeling myself, and I knew that he was a fan of my work. I mean, being black and all. He had to be. The chap introduces himself as any fan would when they finally have the attention of their black Hasselhoff all to themselves. Then things change. It was like the music went silent, and he stared deeply into my eyes. I gave him the pleasure of staring back. As I looked in his eyes, I saw manic, someone that needed help. I stared deeper, and the caution tape began to roll through my head. Danger, Will Robinson! Danger! Anyway, it was at that point that what I thought was manic was actually mania. Hulk-a-fucking mania. The Hulkster had possessed this guy, and in the middle of one of the best parties on this fucking planet, he proceeds to take his 5'1" frame and rip off his shirt and pound on his chest, like, I'm King Kong, motherfucker. That's my woman, he exclaims. I thought you were a gentleman. I don't know you, Stan, but I admired you from a distance. You seem like a real smooth guy. But now, she's mine. Yeah, everything you should never tell another man. My response was, man, what the fuck are you talking about? He then says the chick's name. My ex. I'm like, dude, all good, best of luck. It wasn't enough for him. He proceeded to beat his chest again. She's mine now, he exclaimed once again. I felt the need to respond and de-escalate what in his mind was a very serious matter. I tightly wrapped my free arm around him and looked back to my friend Rebecca, who was pretty much in shock at this moment, and wink. I whisper in his ear, hey man, you don't own that pussy. It's hers and she can do whatever she wants with it. I then pulled him closer before he could even comprehend that real shit I just put on his head. With open-handed gestures and my death grip on his shoulder, I reintroduced him to the party, invited him to lunch or dinner and drinks, whatever, my treat. But today is not the day for you to worry about shit that you don't own. I gave him my card, and I never heard from him. But I heard from her again a few weeks later. Same old, right back to our normal routine. But one time, I may have gotten a little too drunk or ballsy or geeked out. Regardless, as we were about to fuck, I ripped off my shirt and said, I am King Kong, bitch, as I then proceeded to beat him my chest. And she didn't bat an eye or question it, as she was not at the Highlands closing party to witness the mockery. It was just like I told myself a joke and went to fucking as normal. Wish I still had that t-shirt, though. All right, thank you, Stan, for that one. I remember Highlands closing. I ate so many shrooms. I wore one of those, like, papoose things with the baby in it, and it had, like, the actual, like, suckling motion when you put the bottle in its mouth. People were freaking out and thought I brought a real baby to the party. And it was weird sociologically, because dudes would grab its head and twist it, while women would be like, oh, that's so cute. So, anyway. Moving on. All right, our next story. This one's from Cam in Denver. Here we go. It fucking stinks in here, one of the day regulars growled at me as I lifted bar mats from the floor. Stinks didn't seem evocative enough a word, but he was working with what he had. There was at least a quarter-inch of black muck where the accumulated bar grime and spilt beer, fruit wedges, and napkins and anything else dropped over innumerable shifts had composted beneath the feet of shuffling, bored bartenders. Why are you cleaning? No one cleans the squire. And the other day drunks laughed at his attempt at humor. You're just stirring it up. It smells worse now. I agreed. It smelled appreciably worse. After I had the mats out and covered in bleach, I returned with the snow shovel I found in the basement floor, filled to the ceiling with decades of things no one had the authority to throw away but didn't want to look at, and piled it precariously with a path left to the space in back where the ping pong table was left uncluttered in case the owner wanted to play. Each shovelful of grayish slop was heavy like wet spring snow. More bleach. The regulars complained. "The bleach is giving me a fucking headache." Me too, old-timer. Me too. But whatever evil I was disturbing needed to die before it seeped through my shoes and around my toes to fart loudly with every wet step. I could claim I was cleaning out of respect for my new bar, out of duty to work in a clean space, because having finally worked a day shift, the dim lights of night and my alcohol and weed-induced fog could not hide what was there all along. I could claim that having lost my better-paying job, I wanted to make a good impression and myself indispensable in an attempt to grab more shifts and regain some economic certainty. But the truth, as always, was mundane. After pulling a few day shifts, I had heard all 3 of every regular's stories and all 10 of their jokes. It was like working in a chain restaurant with a pre-programmed radio of limited approved songs, but these songs were all sad or raunchy or racist, the jokes as tired as I was from my usual late night before, and had a loop that grew tighter as the drunks downed their $1.50 beers, coyly pocketing the 50 cents change when they thought I wasn't looking. "Why's the bleach smell like gas?" Damn it, they never stopped complaining, unless it was to boast of exploits of decades in the past. It seemed complaining was a sport that justified their lack of tips. I was sweating into my eyeballs and my glasses were fogging. The few shots I'd taken to steel my nerves as I waited in what might be literal shit that splattered up my pants mixing with a full hangover and the smell of bleach. I sniffed. There was a definite gasoline smell. But the gas station across the street was explanation enough, so I continued on, tying up bags only a quarter full so they weren't impossible to move, and going back at it while avoiding eye contact with the surly bastards that hated my disturbance of their routine. Let 'em, bitch. More bleach. I hated it too. George, who was nice enough but couldn't really speak, just a raspy, squeak-inflected whisper, motioned me over. Everyone knew to shut up when he tried to communicate. He bought drinks for others, actually tipped, and commanded respect amongst the day drinkers. It is gas. It took everything for him to get it out. Well, we don't want to piss off George, so I sniffed again. Through the smells of bleach, and puke, and piss, and rot, a smell of gasoline surprised my distracted brain. God damn, someone must have hit a pump across the street or left a pump on after driving off. Either was plausible on Colfax, so I grabbed my phone and went to investigate. Opening the door, the smell, unmistakable, sweet and acrid, hit me full force. At my feet, crossing the threshold, was a wet path trailing all the way down the building to my left and continuing to my right around the corner. The fuck? "George, watch the bar!" And he nodded sagely, raising his pint to me. "Free beer!" yelled the drunks, and their laughter followed me out the door. I rounded the corner and the trail, evaporating visibly and causing the scene to blur in the summer heat, led all the way to a familiar bum. Though nameless, one so beaten by life he wasn't allowed in the squire at all. Layered in multiple dirty coats despite the temperature, matted oily hair glued to his face, talking to himself and fumbling with something small in his hands. At his feet was a bright red plastic gas can, its yellow pour spout pointing at him accusingly. As I walked up to him, he smiled at me broadly, his eyes misty with whatever drugs or alcohol he had managed to find that day, 3 to 5 black and yellow teeth standing tall despite his hunched stature. He was fumbling with a wet and grimy book of a few sad matches, too damp from his sweaty palms to light. "Hey, brother." He was excited to see me. "Can I get a light?" I laughed. Despite my initial shock and anger, he was not here on the same earth that I was. "For what?" I asked, still laughing. Apparently my laughter was infectious, and he began to laugh, and did a small hopping dance and bleated, "My cigarette." I asked what cigarette, and he started to pat his pockets and then frowned. "Can I get a cigarette, too?" All right, fun's over, and I opened the door to the pizza shop next door and yelled, "Call the cops, now!" Which excited my shuffle bum attempted arsonist friend, and he began to scoot off. As I got in front of him, arms wide to block his slow escape, one of the pizza guys came out to ask why, saw the gas can, and saw the line of gas, and yelled inside that calling the cops needed to happen now before coming to help me corral the now scared and pleading man. "I didn't do nothing. I didn't do it. That stuff isn't mine." And his commotion brought more homeless from across the street in his defense. There was a scuffle, and the pizza guy, myself, our quarry, and 3 drunks ended up in a squirming, filthy pile against the building, arms and legs groping for purchase but never committed to violence. "This guy's going to jail tonight, and you guys can leave now or go with him," I yelled loudly enough for all the bar regulars except George to come spilling out of the bar and stare. George was gamely guarding the bar. He'd drink for free today. The helpful homeless guys had other plans for their evening and scampered off, our arsonist yelling after them to come back and help, but their friendship did not include being booked away from their daily delights, and he began to cry. At that moment, I began to feel sorry for him. A small, drug-addled man chewed up and spit onto Colfax by an uncaring life, looking more like a dirty and confused toddler than a malevolent criminal, and crouched there on the street with my hands on his shoulders. He smiled again. A small, mischievous smile. And then he began to laugh, almost hysterically, growing with each wheezy breath. The pizza dude and I exchanged confused looks, but then the smell hit. Worse than anything I had stirred up cleaning the mucky bar floor, worse than the burn of bleach, worse than the gasoline. A powerful odor hit us both, and we stood and backed away quickly, nearing into the street as cars raced by. Like a trapped snake in a final desperate move, he had emptied his bowels, and the watery mixture flowing out his shorts was vile in ways only a street diet of alcohol and occasionally remembered meals of garbage can be. All of Colfax distilled into an elixir that leaked toward my feet. As I stood amidst the flashing red and blues of ambulance, cop cars, and fire trucks, a light show we lovingly called the Squire Disco, an officer approached me. He looked at my cigarette. I hope you wash your hands. I laughed. Officer, with the things I've touched today, washing my hands isn't going to do the trick. And I went back inside to finish my cleaning and my shift, while the regulars told and retold the story of the arsonist bum, each of them heroes of their version, the story growing by the minute as each new regular arrived. What's with all the cops? And why the fuck is he cleaning the bar? And it all started over again. Thanks so much for the stories, you guys. Great stuff. Cam from Denver, Stan from Aspen, you guys are awesome. Thank you. Well, it's last call, so let me give you a tip. Before you ask, yes, we have a bathroom, and while you're probably not an architect, it's located where you think it is. Seriously, how are you even alive, and how have you not died from a bathtub toaster accident yet? Better to remain silent and be thoughtful than to open one's mouth and remove all doubt. Folks, it's been a blast. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. And a call to my fellow booze slingers. Send in your stories to cocktailsandwastednights@gmail.com. You can remain anonymous if you'd like. Thanks for listening, subscribing, downloading, and spreading the word. Don't be afraid to give me a good review, even if you're lying. We'll see you next week on Behind Bars, Cocktails, and Wasted Nights. Cheers.